Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show family. Zach is back from vacation and back home. I'm back from watching the Guardians, and my eyes are still bleeding. Painful weekend, Zach. Do you think this team's in any trouble right now?
I feel we do this show twice a week.
Yeah.
And every week, one episode, they're coming off a sweep. And the
Mhm.
other episode, they're coming off of getting swept. So I feel like we just flip-flop on the tone and our
Yeah.
messaging every show. So this
Well,
is going to be one of the bad ones.
Unfortunately, it's been a weird season for them since the All-Star break. I'm going to explain when we come back to start the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. All right, there we go. So since the All-Star break, Zach, let's look at how streaky the Guardians have been. And we know they didn't play great right before the break also. And overall, they have a losing record now for about 6-7 weeks. But since the All-Star break, they lost 3 of 4. Then they won 3 of 4. They lost 1. But then they since then, they won 5. They lost 7. They won 5. They lost 3. I mean, that's crazy.
It is. And it's weird because they were so consistent for the first 3.5 months. And it's tough to find a team that plays that way. Every team would love to just win 2 or 3, 2 or 3, 2 or 3. It doesn't happen. You go through stretches. We saw the Orioles and the Yankees. The Guardians were part of the Phillies' worst stretch of the season. The difference is it's been so hot and so cold with nothing in between for a while now. And I think it's a direct reflection of the offense.
100%.
They were hitting home runs against the Cubs and those last 2 games against the Twins. And it looked like that was the only way they could survive. And when you're hitting home runs, when Noel's hitting 2 in a game and Ramirez had a hot streak there, like that can alleviate a lot of things. And when they're not a home run hitting team, you're left with trying to scrap together some hits, and they just don't have enough guys who can do that. So it's not just one thing that's going to be a solution here. And I think that's the troubling thing is you look and there's 6 weeks left in the regular season. You look at the standings and it's like half the league is within shouting distance of the best record in baseball. And then half the league is terrible. So there's just a lot of congestion at the top and there's not going to be much breathing room the rest of the way. So you have to figure it out and quickly. And oh, by the way, you're going to Yankee Stadium against one of those teams that's at the top with you. So it's a weird, like their flaws are obvious. I think there are some things they can do to remedy them. And it's amazing that they haven't done that yet. But if you want to explain why this team's been so streaky, I think you point to 1 through 9.
It's almost all about the offense. We talked a lot about needing starting pitching, which they did. And you could still argue they still need some starting pitching. But the reality is that the lineup as a whole overachieved to some degree early in the season, especially David Fry, who, let's face it, since June has been just a guy. And Stephen Kwan overachieved to some degree. I mean, I think, and I guess we'll see. Stephen Kwan's a good player. We know he's a good player. But I think the player he was early this season he's not that good a player, I think.
I don't think anybody is.
No, exactly. So that's tough. Now, Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor, they are what they are, and they're still been fine. But they were getting enough from the rest of the lineup. They were so clutch early in the season, and now it's just, for the most part, it's gone away outside of like you said, those 5 games against the Twins and the Cubs. It's disappeared. So I think the law of averages kind of caught up with them. And that doesn't mean they're now a bad team, which they're not, or they stink, or they're not going to make the playoffs. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. But as you said, I mean, it's crazy on the top. The difference between the best let's just look at the American League. In the American League, the the Orioles and Yankees have 73 wins. The Guardians have 72. The Twins have 69. The Royals have 60. The Twins have 70. The Royals have 69. The Astros have 67. The Red Sox 65. The Mariners 64. I mean, that's all pretty close. You know, and the Guardians, who had the best record in baseball, or certainly the best record in the American League for a lot of the season, we know somebody's got to win the West, so we take out the Astros. The Guardians are only, 3 games ahead of the Royals for the last playoff. And not only are they 3 games up on them in the division, they're 3 games up on them for the last playoff spot.
There's a huge difference between if you get the 1 seed and the 6 seed, right? You're either you've got a first round bye, you've got home field advantage, or you're on the road for a best of 3 against a division winner. Yep. And there's only 3 games separating that. So it's
right.
It's a mess. In baseball overall, there's 11 teams within 5.5 games of the best record in baseball. And it's really you could say it's 5 because of different number of total games played. So there's just a lot of parity. There are no really great teams. I think the Guardians are. It's basically everyone who makes the playoffs is going to have a shot to win the World Series.
That's right. And
so you get there and you're 1 of 12. And I am normally extremely anti when people say, "Oh, you just got to get in and get hot at the right time." I hate that because the best teams have the best chances of getting hot at the right time.
That's correct.
So the strategy should never be, hey, let's just sneak in and, we've got some ingredients that can help us catch fire when it matters. No, like the juggernauts have a better chance of doing that than the team that wins 84 games and sneaks in. But this year is different because everybody is pretty even. And so if you're the Guardians, you look back at all these different streaks. In their last 20 games, they're 10-10, but that's 2 5-game winning streaks and then a 7-game losing streak and a 3-game losing streak, as you pointed out. And it's okay. Well, how do they make sure that obviously the next 6 weeks matter? And then in October, how do you make sure you're playing the way you played when you had those 2 5-game winning streaks and not the way you played when you were having the losing streaks? So to me, it's the common denominator here is the offense, and there was no more apparent message being sent saying that than the performance over the weekend in Milwaukee, where it was non-existent.
Yeah, completely non-existent. And I think the front office, and we didn't kill him at the time of the deadline because they did something and they got Lane Thomas. And obviously he's been a huge disappointment so far. I'm not going to write the guy off in 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks, but he's been a huge disappointment, and they should have done more. And if they weren't going to do more, they should be aggressive with their best prospects, not their second and third and fourth tier prospects. Let's bring up Chase DeLauder. Let's bring up Kyle Manzardo. DeLauder's been hot. They've got to do something. They can't keep running out these guys at the bottom of the lineup that just can't hit. And some of these guys have been given enough of an opportunity. And when a guy who's not a top prospect is slumping for a while, I don't expect him to get hot. If I brought up Kyle Manzardo or Chase DeLauder and he slumped for a little bit, I'm going to be more patient because I know they have a pedigree. It doesn't mean it's going to turn out well, but there's more reason to believe it. Just like you say, a team that's good is more likely to get hot in the playoffs. Sure, the better the team, the more likely you are to get hot. Well, the better the prospect, the more likely you are to bust out of a slump or whatever. And like the Schneemans and the Freemans and they're okay players, but are they going to get hot the last 6 weeks of the season? I don't see it.
Yeah, and you have to use the evidence at hand, right? David Fry, if you said at the beginning of the year, hey, this guy's going to have like an 800 OPS, he's going to be an all-star. He's going to hit some home runs. He's going to draw some walks. He's going to be set. Like, we'd all sign up for that. But it's the way it's happened. And it's possible that the injury is factoring in here more than he will admit, more than the manager will admit. He's got a big wrap on that right elbow after every game. He wears a sleeve every day. But the fact of the matter is, in his last 56 games, David Fry has a 596 OPS.
Oof.
That's killer. You can't have that in the 5 spot every game. And the biggest issue is because of the injury, he has not played. When he was scorching hot for 2 months and his numbers were rivaling Aaron Judge's and Shohei Ohtani's, and it was a hilarious and awesome story. He was bouncing around from catcher to first base to right field to left field to DH. That was so valuable to have someone hitting like that. We all knew he was in over his head a little bit. The numbers would come down to earth, but you could live with it because he was versatile.
Right.
So you didn't have to just pigeonhole him in at DH like you've done for the last couple months. And so now you have a DH who just isn't hitting. And he's still better against lefties than he is against righties. And that's the biggest issue for this team. They can't hit right-handed pitching right now. But it's also the easiest thing to fix because there are guys at AAA who hit lefty, who mash right-handers, and it's long past due to call somebody up. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the savior for the offense.
Right.
It's going to take more than one thing. They still need Lane Thomas to figure it out. They need Stephen Kwan to be better. They need Andres Jimenez to hit more like he has the last couple weeks than he did the first few months. They need more out of catcher. Rocchio hasn't hit. Like, there's a lot wrong with this lineup. Calling up one person is not going to change all that, but it's the one move that's right there that I can see. I have evidence that says David Fry has been a far below average hitter for 2.5 months now, and you can fix it. That's one thing you have control over, and it's a shame because they've faced a right-handed starter 9 of their last 10 games. So it's an opportunity missed.
And I think let me bring up the schedule here, but you got
they'll get 2 righties in New York.
Right.
2 tough ones.
Yeah, and then Evaldi's another righty. He'll be pitching the first game. I mean, when fans say the team doesn't care about winning, the front office or ownership, I usually have a problem with that. But it feels like that winning is not the priority for this front office. And that may be too harsh. And I'm probably going to piss off people with the Guardians by saying that.
Who cares?
Right. I don't really care. But how could you argue that right now? Why are you putting the best possible team out there to win? And clearly that's not the case.
But what would be the ulterior motive here then? Because Kyle Manzardo has more than 700 plate appearances at AAA. That is way more than 24-year-old prospect needs.
I mean,
George Valera is almost at 800 plate appearances at AAA. This is his 3rd year there. And I'm not saying he's the second coming. Like, he's probably strictly a platoon outfielder in the major leagues. He's really struggled against lefties. But at least these guys have nothing to gain at AAA anymore.
Service time is not an issue at this point with any of these
it's almost
guys.
September.
So explain it to me then. Why aren't they up?
The only explanation would be defensive versatility. And I'm not justifying that because at some point you got to say, who cares? You're playing guys out of position. Before every single game, JT McGuire, the outfield coach, hits fly balls to Tyler Freeman, to Daniel Schneemann, to Giancarlo Noel, to Angel Martinez when he was up. Because all these guys are new to the outfield. They've had no issue sending guys to the outfield. When Manzardo first came up, they said they were going to work with him in right field because they wanted him to have flexibility. Fry was crushing it. You had him and Naylor covering first base and DH. That obviously never happened. And I think the thought is that Manzardo comes up, he's got to be a DH because Naylor's at first.
Well, but that's just ridiculous, Zach, that he can't play some first because Naylor's not good.
That's fine. Even if he does, like those two are covering first, the issue would be you look at the bench. Hedges is your backup catcher. Fry's a DH who's really struggled against righties, especially. And you'd have like Noel on the bench or somebody, they like right now having Freeman and Schneemann off the bench because those guys can play anywhere. I'm not saying that that's like, so what? Like, you're fine with one of them.
Yeah.
You don't need both. Freeman came in and pinch hit in Sunday's game. And, it's like, what's the best case scenario there? He hasn't hit all year either.
Right.
Rocchio hasn't hit all year either. Schneemann has been absolutely abysmal for the last month and a half. So, you don't need all 3 of those guys.
No.
Defensive versatility is great if you can hit. They can't hit. They need hitting first.
I know, and that it's like, okay, you say, well, if we're going to win, we got to win by pitching. So we need the great defense, but it just, as you look at where they've struggled the last couple of weeks, it's because they're not hitting enough. So if you're scoring 3 runs in a series, I don't care how good your defense is. You can't win when you score 3 runs in a series.
Yeah, and the other thing is, they called Will Brennan back up. He's been fine, I guess. They've had no trouble. Like, they've put him in center. They've put Lane Thomas in center.
Yeah.
So that covers center field for you.
Right.
So Tyler Freeman has less value. He was an important part of this team in the early going because he solidified center field and no one knew he could play out there. So do you really need him and Schneemann? Do you need 2 utility infielders? No, because the only guy, they DH Jose Ramirez once a week. And at this point in the season, I don't know how important that is to do that. And either way, that's not at the top of the priority list, I don't think. And Jimenez plays every day. Naylor plays every day. Like, the only position where you'd see playing time if you're a utility infielder is shortstop. And between Rocchio and Schneemann and Freeman, like, none of them have hit this year.
Yeah.
So do you need all 3? No, just pick 1 or 2 to be your starter and your backup and go from there.
Can Fry still can't catch at all, right?
I think he's caught once. He caught on July 23rd. That's the only time in the last 2 months since he got injured.
I'll tell you what I would do, if Fry can catch. I know my man Jay Crawford's not going to like this because he said about a month ago that Austin Hedges was the most important player on the Guardians because of some magic sauce he has that helped the Rangers win a World Series when he played there for like 3 weeks. Austin Hedges should be DFA'd. Bring him back as a coach.
Not going to happen.
I know it's not going to happen, but that's what should happen because he is not a major league player. Let's face it. This guy is not a major league player. I know he's a great guy in the locker room. I'm not talking about him personally. Everybody says he's a great guy. I wish him nothing but the best. He's still going to get paid. He's not a major league player. He's the worst hitter in baseball. He's been the worst hitter in baseball forever, either him or Miles Straw. So I would DFA him, and then I'd send 2 of those 3 between Schneemann, Rocchio, and Freeman to the minors, and I'd call up, and I don't care about the position flexibility because I got to hit. And I'm calling up Valera, I'm calling up DeLauder, and I'm calling up Manzardo, and let's go. I know it's crazy.
To be fair, you would have, I think in that scenario, you'd have no backup, no one who could play infield. I mean, this is why you're sitting there. They need some moves. And this, again, like I want to stress, it's almost unfair to whoever does eventually get called up, assuming someone gets called up, because now fans are going to say, like, if Manzardo comes up and he has a rough week,
right. Oh, you see,
people are going to be in his case. Like, I thought this guy was supposed to fix everything, and that's not what we're saying. I mean, it's just that is a move right in front of your face. The issue is, so first of all, I can't deny. I mean, I just wrote about the secret sauce for the team this season, and Hedges has been a big part of that. And I can admit, like, he's more coach than player.
Yeah.
And it was easy to get away with it for a long time because the way they used Naylor and Fry and Hedges the first few months, Hedges was barely playing. He was playing like maybe once a week. It was great. You were getting the most out of all of them. And I see in that clubhouse every day, Hedges leading one meeting after another and having such an instrumental role on this team. And you're right, he's more catcher than player, or more coach than player. But they're just not. They wouldn't.
Can't just make him a coach. You would be okay with that?
What's that?
They can't just make him a coach.
Not mid-season, but especially with, like, Fry can't catch. He hasn't been catching.
Yeah, I hear
so that's the issue here, and that's why, like, almost honestly, like, the thing that would give them the most flexibility would be if Fry would go on the injured list. But they downplay the injury, and it's tough because I can see he hasn't played the field. I asked Stephen Vogt about it the other day, and he said, they're just taking it day by day, week by week, which,
all right.
They
here's
don't.
The new answer, Zach.
Okay.
We DL Fry, IL. Sorry, it's the IL. We IL Fry. We send Freeman down to the minors. All right. We call up Manzardo and Valera. Then when the rosters expand in 12, 13 days, we get Fry off the injured list and we call up the Lauder then. There you go. You still got your one backup. You don't need more than one backup middle infielder. If somebody gets hurt the next day, you call somebody else up. You're fine. I don't need two backup middle infielders. Let's go.
I agree with that. I agree with. I do. Your roster construction is confusing me because I think you have like six
Totally
outfielders in your starting lineup. But hey, yeah, the roster expansion is interesting too. I think it'd be a mistake to just wait 2 more weeks and then call somebody up for like. We started this episode by saying, it's you want to be in the best. You want to figure out what went right in those hot streaks, what went wrong in those losing streaks, obviously, and do the things that were working well. You're trying to form good habits here. You're entering the stretch run. And that's the other thing. Like, you want whoever you call up to be as comfortable as possible. You've got some big games here over the next 6 weeks, and then you hope in October.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Will Brennan came up in 2022. He was scorching hot at AAA. He came up with like 2 weeks left in the regular season. He blinks, and he's in the starting lineup against Garrett Cole at Yankee Stadium in a playoff game. And I remember talking to him in the dugout before that game, and he's like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe this is real. You don't want that.
Right.
You want guys to be comfortable. You want them to have, this week's a perfect example. You're going to Yankee Stadium. Like this could be a playoff preview. The atmosphere will be great. And you're facing Garrett Cole on Thursday. Like this is, you want guys to experience this, to go through this so that it's not daunting when you're fighting for a playoff spot in September or you're in the postseason.
Yeah. Last thing, before we take some we got a FanDuel read and some fan comments and questions. In terms of the starting pitching this weekend, obviously Tanner Bybee followed up his good start with another one. Ben Lively bounced back. He pitched pretty well yesterday after 2 straight bad starts. But Gavin Williams, that was a big disappointment on Friday. Aaron Savali looked like his best start of the year probably. But Gavin Williams coming off his best start of the year. The inconsistency continues. That was disappointing. But 2 out of 3 were good starts.
Yeah, and don't you just feel like the floor is raised with this group?
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Like, what's the worst case scenario for any of the 5 really is kind of what Gavin Williams gave you Friday night.
Yeah.
And now, Matthew Boyd and Alex Cobb at Yankee Stadium, we'll see. It's a big test. But there's just, you go into those games thinking the team has a chance to win. And it didn't really feel that with Carlos Carrasco or Joey Cantillo or for a while there, McKenzie, Logan Allen. So I think it's in a healthier spot.
Yeah, I agree. Folks, let me talk to you about FanDuel here. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to download America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com to look at the odds and check out anything you're looking for. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's get back to it. Let's get to some fan comments and questions. Let's begin with too much torque. I feel like we keep talking about pitching, but if the offense doesn't start making things happen, we will not win the division. Twins have a super easy schedule the rest of the way. I mean, the Royals, if you look at the Royals, forget even the Twins, the Royals have the second best run differential in all of baseball, Zach. Only the Yankees are better. The Royals are really good right now.
They are, and you got 7 games coming up against them. I mean, that's the other thing is, I'll never tell a fan, like, if you want to live and die with every single game, I worry about your health, your sanity, but that's your prerogative. Go for it.
Yeah.
And when your team is having a good season, like that journey it can be exhilarating. It can be tormenting. And my point is there's 6 weeks left. And I know that lead has shrunk from 9 games to 2. They do have the tiebreaker over the Twins, which is important.
Okay.
But the big thing is there's a lot to sort out still. 7 games with the Royals, I think, in a span of a week and a half, and then a 4-game series against the Twins in Cleveland. There's a lot that can happen in there.
Oh, yeah.
So that division race is going to be pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule is brutal. I mean, the Guardians, you're playing. You got Houston. By the way, Houston's really the only team in the American League that's playing great. I mean, I know the Royals have won 4 in a row, but they lost 5 of 7 before that. They're playing pretty well overall, but
Everybody's
Houston's
just
the
up and
hottest
down.
team. Yeah, everybody's been up and down except for Houston. I think they've won 9 of 10, something like that. But yeah, the Yankees have been hot and cold. They blew a game last night to the Tigers in the last inning. Orioles have been, up and down. Corbin Burns just had a terrible start his last time out. And obviously, Jordan Westberg's been a big loss in their lineup because he was one of their better players. And so that's the thing. As you said earlier, nobody's pulling away. Nobody's great this year. There's a lot of very good teams, and the Guardians of one of them. They're not playing well. They obviously played like crap this weekend. They've lost 10 of 15 overall. You can make those numbers look however you want. I could say they've won 5 of 8.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could say they lost 10 of 15. I mean, and if they have a good, maybe they go to the Bronx, take 2 out of 3. Well, all of a sudden I'm like, well, they won 7 of the last 11 games. So you can spin it however you want. But the truth is they've been up and down, and so have the rest of the teams in the American League. The Astros, as we said, have played great for the last couple of weeks, but they weren't playing particularly well before that. So I think any team can win especially in the American League. I don't think there's any doubt. Like, if it's the Guardians, Royals, Twins, Astros, Yankees, and Orioles, I mean, you can make a case for any of those teams. Certainly, if the last thing the Twins want to do is play the Yankees because they never beat the Yankees. But the Royals are a total wild card. You wouldn't even know what to expect. But with Reagans and Lugo at the top of their rotation, those guys have both been great.
There's nobody who you're like, oh, like, I think we'd rather be this seed so we can face this team. Like, there's
Right.
no. Yeah, there's none of that. I mean, I looking at the schedule, obviously the Guardians still have 1 series left with the White Sox, which, think about this, because everybody has feasted on them all year.
Yeah.
If the Guardians were like 8-2 against the White Sox instead of 5-5,
oh man,
they'd be 5 games up on the Twins, 6 on the Royals. They'd have the tiebreaker too. Like, there would not be this panic. But they're 5-5 somehow. So I think the big thing is this homestand coming up, starting this weekend. 3 against the Rangers, 4 against the Royals, 3 against the Pirates. I think that's a big one. There's a doubleheader in there. There's an off day in there. The Twins almost swept them in a 4-game series.
Yep.
Choked away the finale. That's a team that's dead and buried and limping to the finish line.
Yeah.
The Pirates have been dreadful this month.
Yeah.
They've fallen out of it. Obviously, the Royals are tough, but if you can win series against the Rangers and Pirates at home, which you should do, if you can win 5 of those 6, then you can split with the Royals, and 7-3 is a great homestand. Like, that's the stretch of baseball where it's getting back to what they did earlier this year, where it was just consistently solid baseball. And we haven't seen that for a while, and we've been talking about how brutal the schedule's been for forever. This is like the one little semi-oasis.
A couple of quick notes on the White Sox since you brought them up. Do you know that you want to guess the last time? It was not against the Guardians, believe it or not, but the last time the White Sox had a winning streak.
As in 2 games?
2 games. In this case, they actually won 3 in a row. But the last time they had a winning streak, it ended on what date? I'm sorry, not the date it ended. The last day of that winning streak. The last win of that winning streak was what? When are you guessing?
June 16th.
Close, June 29th. And the White Sox record since May 15th, because they actually had a stretch in early May, where they played well. But since May 15th, they were 14-30, which, considering where they are now, is not as bad. But since then, the White Sox have gone 16-65. So they've lost 65 of their last 81 games.
That should be impossible.
It's nuts.
The beauty of baseball is that anyone can win 1 game.
Not the White Sox.
They've ruined that rule.
Well, they've won 3 games since the All-Star break. 3. All right. Gunner, if they don't make the playoffs, this will be the most epic in-season collapse. I mean, yeah, sure. There's been epic in-season collapses by other teams. Teams have blown big leads. But if they don't make them, it's bad enough if they don't win the division. That's bad enough. But if they don't make the playoffs, which is not impossible because we still got 38 games to go. If I had to bet, I'd bet they make it. But
yeah, they'd have to fall out, right? It's the Red Sox who are the one team on the outside looking in. They're 6.5 games up on the Red Sox.
Right. They probably won't fall that far. But you never know.
But there's a big difference for this team. I mean, avoiding that first round wild card series is enormous.
Yeah. Yes.
It is a coin flip, especially in a year like this where there's no juggernaut. So it's just, you get into those wild card series are going to be teams that are very evenly matched.
Yep.
And you don't want any part of that.
No.
Take the first round bye, rest your bullpen for a few days, and then host a 5-game series. But to do that, you got to win the division.
Got to do it. 420 Amsterdam says Lame Thomas is a literal and figurative swing and a miss.
With the Guardians, he's hitting 113 with a 368 OPS. That's 6 for 53 with 23 strikeouts. And the crazy part is he came to Cleveland on a 27-game on-base streak.
I know.
People forget that.
Awful. Buckeye guy. Guardians were swept by the Diamondbacks and the Brewers. Those teams are hot. Guardians got to take the series versus the Yanks. Corey says, when do we find out if a player was picked up on waivers? Ahmed Rosario was picked up by the Reds on waivers. I know people were asking about that. Another former Guardian, Gio Urshela, was cut, and nobody claimed him on waivers. I don't think he really helps them. But, just to let you know. Buckeye guy, Twins are nipping at our heels. We got to make some kind of move. Well, the only moves you can make at this point are pretty much calling up guys from the minors. Buckeye guy, they're not calling people up because our players are killing it in the outfield. Who's killing it in the outfield?
I don't know.
Maybe he's being sarcastic. David says you could put a ball on a tee, and my boy Rocchio is going to whiff. Hi, Bull. Hi, Zach. From Karen, I want the Guardians to win these important games so bad. I'm hoping we can win at least 2 from the Yankees. Much love to both of you. Guardians forever.
When was the last time you took some hacks at a batting cage?
Not too long ago.
I know you coach.
Because I coach Little League. So every once in a while, I'll get in the bat. I did last year. I haven't this year.
Okay.
I
did over the weekend.
We're having a WKYC softball game next weekend. So I'll be hitting the ball in softball.
I went over the weekend. It was probably my first time in 15 years.
Oh my God. So something hurt. Is your body hurt today?
I'm sore, but it was more just like I felt like I needed to take a couple breaths between every pitch, and the baseballs kept coming.
I know.
So I was exhausted by the end. Form was terrible, but it went better than I thought, even though my 2-year-old was talking trash in the background.
No.
Oh yeah.
What was being said?
Well, my wife feeds him lines to say, and he'll repeat anything. So.
Did you get your wife to videotape it so we could see it?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
She should have done that.
We
could have broke down your swing path, your footwork.
I fouled a couple off my foot.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, last year, last baseball season, I take the whole team to the batting cage, right? At some point, if it's, whatever. Anyway, my son took one in the mouth, took a shot in the mouth, and he was bleeding and he's crying and all this stuff. And we only had about 4 games left in the season. It was late in the year. He was red hot after getting hit in the mouth. It was like it brought him good luck or something, which I don't believe in. But oddly enough, I was worried he was not going to get back in the box after that. But he was sizzling hot after that. Like
the pitch hit him, or did he foul it off?
I think it I actually was. So we had 3 cages going at once. So I wasn't looking at his cage at the time, so I didn't see it actually happen. But I believe what happened is it kind of grazed, like it I can't remember now, but I think it might have hit his helmet and then hit him in the face from there. or something. It deflected off something. I don't think it was as bad. I don't. Maybe it was bad. I don't remember, but took a good shot. But played well after that. So was it worth it?
Seems like it, yeah.
No permanent damage. He's okay. He's tough. Finally, Bruce says 38 games left. Can they get to 90 wins? That's the minute. I think you're going to. Yeah, you'll need 90 to make the playoffs. You're going to need more than that to win the division, though.
Yeah, it's crazy there. I mean, there's no one on. I think most teams are on pace for like 94, 95 wins.
Yeah.
And really, if you look at it's been the Orioles, Yankees, and Guardians,
right,
at the top of the American League since like early May or mid-May. But all of those teams have treaded water for a couple months now.
Yep.
So it's just weird. I don't know. And then I think, we're going to get to the postseason. And it'll be interesting. Like, we should all fill out brackets because it's so different from previous years where it's like, okay, well, this team won 104 games and this team won 107. So I expect them to meet in the World Series. And obviously it doesn't always happen. You get years like last year with Rangers and Diamondbacks, which no one saw coming. But this year it's just, the 5 seed could be just as likely to make it as the 1 seed.
Exactly. I think it could go anyway. You're right. But for the Guardians, I think home field advantage is really important. Obviously, they play much better at home. By the way, to your point, you said that all 3 of those top teams have been middling, right? So right now, the Orioles and Yankees have 73 wins, and the Guardians had 72 wins. At the All-Star break, they all had 58. So they basically all have the exact same record since the All-Star break. The Yankees, since the All-Star break, are 25. No, that doesn't make sense.
15.
What's that?
15 wins since the All-Star break?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes. 15 and 12. Yankees 15 and 12 since the break. The Orioles are 15 and 14 since the break. And the Guardians are 14 and 15 since the break. So it's the worst of the 3, but they're all pretty close.
Yeah, and I think if you went back even further, I think you'd see the same because it feels like all 3 of those teams have been 20-ish games above 500 for
since
a
July.
long time.
Yeah, since like the beginning of July.
Yeah, it's weird. I've never seen a season like this. I don't know if I like it or not.
It's exciting. It's competitive. We'll see how it turns out in the playoffs. All right, Zach.
Yeah.
Have a good week. All right, I know you're going to the Bronx. You're leaving, tomorrow morning?
Before dawn, yeah.
All right, so have a good trip.
Plenty of time in the city.
Yeah, there you go. Getting some good pizza. All right, have a great trip, and we'll see you when you get back Friday morning before the next homestand, starting against Texas. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks for all your messages. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like. We'll talk to you on Friday. Where else but right here on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show.